And welcome to Chentex Multimedia live stream for the 29th day of April, all the way from Brisbane. So streaming directly to your device wherever you are. Welcome to the show. And today we're going to be talking about, in this brief segment, which is the news update segment, on the current situation in India. We'll look at the Port Arthur massacre, the anniversary of that there, and also we'll be talking to Cameron Brooks from Brooks, Australia, who talks about the smoke alarms and how disabled people or people hard of hearing and elderly people, how vulnerable they are and what sort of risks are associated with the smoke alarms in houses with this kind of people. So let's get on with the show for today. Once again, as I mentioned, thank you so much for joining in with the show on this 29th day of April. Well, it is a bit of a hazy day out there today, but it's still looking quite good. Looking out into the bay, you can see some of the ships coming in there, but it looks very, very good out there as well. But right now, let's go and take a look at all the news. First up, the Deputy Chair of Port Arthur Authority.
Today's memorial is remembering what happened on that day and how it had a profound effect on so many people. And people want to remember that day because of the impact. I think there's more and more people who are now recognising the broader significance of the events and the impact they had on gun laws and gun deaths, not only in Australia but elsewhere in the world. And as that happens, I think the site will become more significant for more than convicts. We need to tell stories about our past to guide us in the future, and this is a story that needs to be told so that we deepen the understanding of what went before us and the potential needs to change society in the future and to monitor such things as gun laws. I think it's something that people want to remember, want to think about and reflect on the past, and I think that this ceremony touched those people, and I think they'll remember it with affection.
And lest we forget, and I think it's a good thing to remember all the ones who gave their lives. Well, right now we'll go to India, and right now pressure is building on the Australian government to bring the citizens back. But what are the risks? Of course, there is always three sides of the story, and here's the story from India of people who are actually stuck there.
We're stranded, we're stuck here. Now this virus is hit. We never know who it's going to kill.
Australian Emily McBurney lives in New Delhi, at the heart of India's COVID catastrophe. She and her partner Faraz Khan can smell the cremations from their terrace.
The amount of bodies being burnt currently around the city is it makes you very tense and anxious. It's hard not to get anxious.
Emily's been trying to return to Australia to see family for more than a year. She was finally offered a DFAT flight in late March, but had contracted the virus and couldn't board the plane.
I definitely felt panicked. My lungs were not working on this day 3, or technically day 2. My lungs were not working.
Yesterday, the federal government halted flights from the world's second most populous nation, leaving more than 8,000 Australians stranded in India.
And what are you going to do for it?
It's a humanitarian crisis, and it's one that's gripping the world.
More than 350,000 infections are being recorded each day in India. Emily says she supports flights stopping for now because of the rate of the spread, but says more should have been done sooner to help stranded citizens.
I just think it could have been avoided so many months ago. Like every other country got their citizens out back in May.
The situation is really bad and we are trying our best.
Her partner Faraz works as an emergency doctor on the COVID front line.
No, we have not seen this ever, not even last year. This new wave is really out. I think this is out of the box. This is not following any rule.
India's crisis is just a stark reminder that this isn't over until it's over everywhere.
While the federal government says the flight ban is needed to relieve pressure on the hotel quarantine system, some question why other overseas outbreaks haven't been met with the same measures.
I think the reaction by the government has been so inconsistent when we compare to what happened with the surges in the UK with the new variant, and we certainly didn't impose any bans then. And even with the USA, around January, we had very high numbers of people coming in with COVID, even higher than we're now seeing from people with India, and there was no talk of bans then.
It has only actually been in the past week, on the week commencing the 16th of April, that we started to see a jump. It went from 90 the previous week to 143 the following week.
G'day, sir. How you going? Captain Rockroar, Mike Battery Commander.
The Prime Minister today said he hopes expanded quarantine facilities in the Northern Territory will make it possible to bring people home.
We'll be restarting those flights in several weeks' time, we hope, and that means that the facility here will be ready to take those returning Australians.
Adam Zampa retains his spot for the upcoming season.
The IPL it's the greatest competition in the world, and the opportunity to play the IPL is pretty hard to say no to.
Australian cricketer Adam Zampa has been playing in the Indian Premier League, but the leg spinner is now trying to urgently return to Australia.
I've been here 3 weeks now, and when we arrived, the case numbers weren't being spoken about. Probably the wrong thing to do, but the assumption was that it was okay here.
While some cricketers are hoping for a charter flight home at the end of the season, Adam Zampa is trying to get on a commercial flight.
Obviously, I'm feeling for the whole country of India, what they're going through. It's a dire situation, and I'd hate to think that any Australians are stuck here.
The latest lockdown in Perth, sparked by a hotel quarantine breach, has brought renewed scrutiny on the exemption process allowing some people to travel overseas.
I just urge the Commonwealth to stop letting people leave this country to go to weddings or other things overseas. You can study here, you can get married here, people here are missing funerals. They're not essential.
No, people go for reasons like when there's a death in the family. And if funeral is not a big reason, or if death is not a big reason, then I don't know what else can be a big reason.
Pankaj Sharma and his wife Kim have called Australia home since 2013. But Kim had to return to India after the sudden death of her father, well before the country's deadly second wave.
So her father passed away because of a cardiac arrest, which happened all of a sudden. Sorry. Yeah. So it was quite sudden, for both of us.
Kim was granted a travel exemption on compassionate grounds, but Pankaj's application was rejected.
Just don't stress, just don't step out, stick to the plan of staying home.
Kim is now unable to secure a flight back to Australia.
Relax, don't stress, is what I'm telling you, don't just stress right now. You can't do anything. It's a big cost for everyone, financially, emotionally, mentally, right? We are citizens here, we've been citizens here now, right? But we also have history, and we can't just wipe out our history just because we've moved to a new country. If you're a citizen, you're a citizen.
We should be looking at the least restrictive ways to control this infection and really moderate how it is that we are controlling this and do it in a more courageous, more empathetic way, and not just leave people stranded in a country where the healthcare system is crumbling.
So there is the situation. It's quite grim, but when you look at the individuals, of course, they will always have their compassionate reasons, and and quite compelling reasons, which are legitimate reasons. But of course, then you have to look at the national security as well. But the rules need to be uniform right across the board. So why is this all happening? And the reports, the next report, which I'm going to show, will probably say that if these numbers that are coming through might not be accurate.
The devastating human toll of India's second wave is passing in plain sight. The country has seen exponential growth in cases in just the last few months. Its 7-day average is now above 340,000 infections per day. Deaths have followed a similar pattern, now more than 2,000 a day. But there are widespread concerns the actual numbers are far higher.
50% of deaths are not registered by the government as COVID-19. The government only counts related deaths of victims who die in a hospital.
There are questions surrounding data reported by local authorities. For instance, in the state of Gujarat, 78 total deaths from coronavirus were recorded on April 16th. But in 7 cities in that state, 689 bodies were buried or cremated following COVID-19 protocols. One investigation found at least 1,150 extra deaths weren't included in Delhi's official COVID count over the last week.
My father is in a very critical condition. I'm getting no help. Please help me, please.
The desperation is being driven by a lack of access to medical care and supplies. And many hospitals across the country are already at capacity.
I get maybe around 50 calls every day. Somebody asking for beds, somebody asking for cylinders, somebody asking for drugs. We don't have anything available and patients are dying.
The situation is critical right now. This pandemic is the worst we have ever seen till now. And these 2 weeks are going to be a hell for us.
According to one analysis, India has little more than half a hospital bed per 1,000 people, far below the average in developed countries of 4.7 hospital beds. But even more troubling, 12 states, which account for close to 70% of India's population, are below the national average, as low as 0.11 hospital beds per 1,000 people, or about 1 bed for every 10,000 people.
We have patients who are waiting here for 2 days. They're not finding any hospital.
And while the country is manufacturing several vaccines within its own borders, the sheer scale of vaccinating its own population remains daunting. India has administered more than 142 million doses of vaccines, but put up against its 1.3 billion strong population, that's little more than just 10% of all people within its borders having received just 1 shot. More than 22 million people among them are fully vaccinated. That's just 1.67% of India's population. Countries around the world are scrambling to get India emergency equipment and vaccine supplies, as the situation is expected to get even worse.
The enormity, the velocity and the ferocity of India's second surge is something to really take a lesson from for the rest of the world.
So some very, very distressing scenes coming there from Delhi. But right now, we'll talk to someone in Delhi and looking at how it all happened. And this is a report at the courtesy of
Ray is a Delhi-based lawyer who has started a helpline assisting those in need of beds, oxygen and medicine, and she joins us now. Thank you so much for joining ABC News this afternoon. We know that India is being overwhelmed. Do you think the daily tally of coronavirus infections and deaths paints an accurate picture of what is happening inside your country right now?
Not really, no. No, it doesn't, because it is difficult to keep a count, and there are reports that are coming in that a lot of the times, because of the issues around funerals and other things, as well as the fact that there is a government machinery that is completely overwhelmed, the numbers are not accurate, no.
How has coronavirus affected your family?
It came in as a tsunami. We should have been on a vacation right now. My concern should have been getting my school kids' homeworks done. It should have been to go back to work. It's not that. Right now we're here with a sense of fear. Every phone call brings in some news, whether somebody is lost or some worse still. It's the inability to be able to do anything because there is a complete breakdown.
Do you think it has now reached the point that everyone in India has lost a loved one?
I would say so, yeah. More than one sometimes. And it's not the loved ones that are gone, it's the ones that are struggling, the ones that are struggling to get oxygen, the ones that are struggling to get across to a hospital. It's those that break our hearts right now. I don't think we have time to grieve.
Tell me about this helpline that you yourself have started up. I believe you did just hear that people were in desperate need of some supplies and you happen to know of some people who were able to give them.
Yeah, so basically it started about a week, maybe 10 days back. I'm not sure about exact time, but I'd say it was sometime. I've lost account of what days this is, right? But it started with people calling out for help across social media. Across WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of these. And I was amazed as a lawyer that we had information coming in, but nobody was verifying it. And that's something that my profession teaches me. You don't utter a word unless you're absolutely certain that that is going to be there. And then a part of me felt that how does it help anyone if you have 200 numbers and you're a caregiver watching your loved ones slip away, oxygen going down by the minute. So it just started with a bunch of us getting together and saying, hey, can we sort of do one thing, sit at a telephone at a particular point in time. If we receive any call for help, source the data from social media, wherever there might be a lead, verify it, call up whether there's an availability of bed, is there an availability of oxygen, is the medication that is available, can you get Tamiflu there, sometimes even organizing calls between patients and doctors asking for help all around, but ensuring that whatever information that came across was absolutely accurate at that point in time. It takes a lot of time because you start with starting to look at all the data that the government's made available, then starting to call up hospitals, starting to ask oxygen vendors and dealers, starting to look at coordinating. But at that point in time, I think it does manage to get across some help to somebody who doesn't know where to look for help, because when you can see your loved ones, your family members, others getting in, you don't know who to call in a crisis because the crisis numbers are overwhelmed. The official crisis numbers are overwhelmed. So it is, I don't think I'm doing anything amazing. I don't think it's anything more than what any human-minded, human-spirited person would do at this point in time.
You must be hearing such stories of desperation.
So they were this is the situation at Ground Zero, right in coming from Delhi. And yesterday I was talking to Munish Gupta as well, who is from Gopio and the PIO CCI, which is the PIO Chamber of Commerce, and similar reports that have been coming out, and we're trying to put together something so that we can from here provide some help and some assistance, and as soon as anything finalizes or materializes, we'll let you all know what that may be and how you could be of assistance to those people there, similar to the help center that they have set out there. Obviously we'll be working through the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs. Well, right now, let's take a look at a message from our sponsors.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we are listening to Australian Indian Radio. And today, once again, we talk about a topic which is very close to, our community interest. As we know that at least one Australian dies from residential fire each week, with people aged over 65 accounting for a third of the fatalities. In fact, new research reveals over 57% of Australians worry about the safety of the elderly relatives still living at home. Yet less than half, means 42%, check their elderly relatives' smoke alarms to ensure that they are working. As we know, many houses have the smoke alarms, but people hard of hearing and elderly Aussies are at greatest risk of the fatal fires. So new research reveals that 1 in 2 Australians are concerned that their elderly relatives would not escape a house fire in time. And a quarter of Australians believe that their elderly relatives would sleep through a smoke alarm, while less than half check their elderly relatives' smoke alarms to ensure that they are working. Now, of course, people can argue that there are many ones where people can get serviced checks done on that. But to talk about all of this, once again, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the studio Cameron Brooks, who CEO of Brooks. Cameron Brooks has been working with the family company now for 25 years, performing a range of roles in this period as a CEO and MD since 2005. He has overseen constant growth across traditional markets while positioning Brooks Australia to take new opportunities with the objective of securing stronger commercial relationship with the sectors of the building and essential services industry. Through the development of solutions in the niche market, Brooks Australia is positioned well as it enters its 5th decade under his hands and guidance. And you'll probably remember we had an interview around last time. Once again, welcome to the studio, Cameron.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit more about these research findings?
Well, you quoted the numbers before, and out of that, I actually am pleasantly surprised that people have actually given the safety of their elderly relatives from fire some consideration. It's important. They can't get out as quickly usually, so it is important that they have the best protection.
And of course, rightfully said that the elderly should have more protection. So why are the elderly people so much more at risk of experiencing fires at home?
Well, I think, firstly and foremostly, a lot of elderly have hearing impairment to some degree or other. And while that probably doesn't mean they can't hear a smoke alarm, it also means that if they're asleep, then they're less likely to hear it. And there are other products out there as well that we have at Brooks that can supplement the smoke alarm and ensure as early a warning as possible, because the earlier the better. Time is of the essence. You don't want to be breathing in toxic smoke, so it's very important that they hear the alarms, however they're generated. But it's a smoke alarm is where it starts.
Well, you rightfully said that, we are only as good as what we can hear in those circumstances, when the alarms. So as you have rightfully mentioned, that it's not the medium, but it's more important is that they do hear that alarm. What advice do you have for people that are worried about an elderly relative at their own home? Well,
Firstly and foremostly, go over to their house and press the test button on the smoke alarm and make sure that it works. All brands of smoke alarm have a test button, and if you press the test button and it goes into alarm, makes the sound, then the smoke alarm is working as it should. If there's a flashing light, or if it's making a little chirping sound every few minutes, then you might have a battery issue, and if that's the case, then maybe you replace the battery. You might have insect or dust infestation, so it might be worth opening them up and giving them a quick vacuum or a brush, but you've got to do that carefully, obviously, because they're quite sensitive instruments. But yeah, there's a few things you can do. You can also start to consider an escape plan Make sure that the escape plan doesn't have deadlocks when you get out. There's a bit of planning will save lives.
And of course, rightfully said that people need to check the alarms and also test those signals. It could be a low battery, as you have mentioned, and to identify the sounds that, this is a real alarm and this is a low battery alarm, that is very important, and having that escape plan is very important as well. So can you tell us a little bit more about the specialized smoke alarm for those with hearing loss?
Okay, well, with our smoke alarms, you can interconnect a specialised high-intensity strobe light, and also there's a vibrating pad that is also connected to the smoke alarm that you put underneath your pillow. So if the smoke alarm and the sound of the smoke alarm isn't going to be enough to wake some elderly because of their hearing impairment, then you also have the strobe light, and I defy anyone to stay asleep when you see this strobe light. And then you have the vibrating pad underneath the pillow, so you've got 3 ways of warning people of the presence of fire.
Now that is very important, especially for the elderly, because as was said in the intro, that many could probably sleep through the things if it wasn't for the strobe and that vibrating light that you have just talked about. So if people need more information, there's only so much we can cover in this short interview. But where can people go to get more information and to access the checklist?
Okay, well, there'll be a link to the checklist on the front page of our website, brooks.com.au, and within also the website there is a whole range of other information about residential fire protection, and I think that 10 minutes spent on there just educating yourself about what you have and what you need is well worth doing. You might want to consider a carbon monoxide alarm as well. They're becoming more and more popular, and especially as winter comes in, and all the range of heaters, particularly gas heaters, it'll be worth looking into as well.
And that is, again, a very sound advice because, with heaters and all the doors and windows tightly locked, you could have that situation there as well. So once again, Cameron, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this very informative, session with us because it is of a lot of importance, and people would, care about the elderly, the elderly, and they would be worried, and this information would be very, very helpful for them to find out. So once again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Cameron Brooks from Brooks and Home Alarm Systems. Please do check out their website, and especially you have elderly people in the home who might be hard of hearing. It can save lives. Well, next up after this show, we have Tanvi Goyal from Oz India Travel coming up with at 10 a.m. with all the latest update on the travel under the current circumstances, what can be done and what can't be done at this point in time. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been wonderful having your company this morning. As we know, now all our specialist programs have been separated from the news segment, so they are standalone programs. As we know, on Wednesday we have the real estate update, and today on Thursdays we have the travel updates, and once a month we have the migration updates as well. So there's lots to talk about and lot of community information that we'd like to share with you all. It's been wonderful having your company. Let's pray for India. I know there are lots of things that are happening, and as soon as they come to hand, we will bring you that. And tomorrow or Friday, we will talk to a young man, Arpit Singh, who is from Gopia, Queensland, organizing a mental health seminar. So, we'll talk all about that and find out what he's doing, how it will be taking place, where it will happen. So until the next show, it's goodbye from me. Enjoy the rest of the day, but most importantly, stay safe.